Welcome to Best of the Book Club. Today I'm recommending a novel that the Library Reading Group read back in 2012. It's a short novel which was published in 2010, and it was to be the author's last, as he announced this was to be his final offering before retiring after a long and highly distinguished literary career. The novel is Nemesis by Philip Roth. The story is set in Newark during the sweltering summer of 1944. World War II is being fought abroad, but another tragic conflict is affecting those at home in this New Jersey city. A polio outbreak is sweeping through the tightly knit community. 23-year-old Eugene Bucky Cantor wants to go to war to defend his country, but due to very poor eyesight is rejected. Instead, he applies to be the playground officer in a Jewish section of Newark. While his friends are fighting in Europe, Bucky contents himself with the thought that he is serving his country by taking care of the boys enjoying their summer. Then the polio epidemic comes and changes everything that Bucky believes, and it challenges his faith. The narrator of the story is Arnie Mezhnikoff, one of the children who uses the playground and is also a victim of the disease. It is Mezhnikoff who meets Mr. Cantor years later by chance in 1971 and learns how things turned out and tells us what happened. Roth describes the terror that polio brings to the frightened and bewildered Newark community convincingly, and of course today it is easy to draw comparisons between this story and the COVID-19 pandemic, even though polio affected children more than adults. The powerlessness of parents, the lack of information, the speed and severity of the disease all feature in this novel. Newark is gripped by the terror of handshakes and kisses, and people recall with a shudder who they embraced and when. Another terror ensues when a completely asymptomatic, seemingly completely healthy person travels to a remote and isolated gathering and proves to be the carrier of the disease. Residents discuss rumours of official plans to quarantine the entire neighbourhood, and their concern for the well-being of children elsewhere in the city runs up against their fears for their livelihoods. Roth's description of their efforts to process the drastic changes in their daily life feels as if it could have been lifted from today's news, but the outbreak of polio, so well described in Roth's novel, is fictional and not based on an actual event. One passage in particular strikes a chord. We were warned not to use public toilets or public drinking fountains, or to swig a drink out of someone else's soda pop bottle, or to get a chill, or to play with strangers, or to borrow books from the public library, or to talk on a public payphone, or to buy food from a street vendor, or to eat until we had cleaned our hands thoroughly with soap and water. Bucky is an extremely conscientious and kind-hearted man who sincerely cares for the children in the neighbourhood and is well liked and admired for his athletic ability and easygoing ways. As the kids he looks after become infected, he continually questions his decisions, whether he is doing the right thing or not. Roth explores how fate plays a role in who is affected or not, and Bucky wrestles with his own guilt and questions his faith. At the funeral of one of the boys, he thinks how could there be forgiveness, let alone alleluias, in the face of such lunatic cruelty. The book group marvelled at the ability of Roth's writing. He not only can create a beautiful story of responsibility and heroism, but he delivers scenes and passages in the book so magnificently. Confrontations between characters are riveting, descriptions of relationships are full of warmth and agony, and his tendency to place great scenes of happiness next to scenes of total despair keep the reader hooked. The narration has a lazy, relaxed feel of a hot summer, but as a reader you get the sense of tragedy unfolding right from the beginning, and as the story develops the tension tightens. Nemesis by Philip Roth is a book you may want to add to your reading list rather than read right now, but it's a superbly written, powerful novel which you'll remember for a very long time whenever you choose to read it. It's available to download as an ebook from our e-library.